Hi, good evening. Welcome to the first of the two February meetings of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission. It is February 4th, 2025, 6:48 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before proceeding, I'm just going to mention that our standard that in lingo that pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation. The recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of this agenda. And as is our custom, we should do some introductions. And going across my screen, we'll start with Mr. Shagnon.
Hi, I'm DJ Shagnon. I'm a landscape architect and resident of Ward 5.
Mr. Coughlin.
Hi, my name is Dan Coughlin, and I am a resident of Ward 3.
Ms. Price.
Hi, my name is Denise Price, and I live in a local historic district.
Mr. Falvey.
Hi, my name is Ryan Falvey. I am a resident of Ward 2.
And I'm Eric Parks, resident of Ward 3, architect and historic homeowner. Then we have several members of staff if you all would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Madison Anthony. I'm a planner with Planning, Preservation, and Zoning.
Hello, I'm Andrew Gromensky, also a planner with Planning, Preservation, and Zoning.
Hi, I'm Lexi Payne. I'm also a planner with PPZ.
And I'm Kit Lester, and I'm also a planner with Planning, Preservation, and Zoning.
Thank you all. All right, let me get my agenda page back here. We have two cases on our agenda for tonight. Both of them are alterations to local historic district. And the first one is HP 24-000005. Address is 25 Atherton Street. The applicant is Christine Strout for IRB Real Estate, owner of the Carr Schoolhouse Condo Trust. The applicant seeks a certificate of appropriateness to alter an LHD property by installing electric vehicle charging stations and a transformer in the parking lot. Is the applicant here tonight?
Mr. Chair, this is Madison Anthony speaking. The applicant is here. I am promoting her right now. And if there's anyone else here to represent this case, please let me know by raising your hand. All right, Christine, are you there?
Just trying to, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Like trying to get through. Hi, I'm Christine Strout, and I'm the property manager for the Carr Schoolhouse on Atherton Street. And this is a project that I'm involved with as far as the EV chargers go for the parking lot.
Okay. We've looked at the report. It's fairly self-explanatory, but why don't you give us a quick rundown for the record of what you're all up to?
Okay, so there's many 12 unit owners at this Carr Schoolhouse that are interested in getting electric vehicles but have no place to charge them. So we opened a project last year, hired on a company to help us walk through all of this and find the appropriate chargers. So we've been working with them and Eversource to get this project moving. And as of now, with the 12 unit owners, we need 8 charging stations, some of which will be dual. And on the, I think you have it there as far as where the chargers will be located, and what they look like, which are black pedestals with the white charging block. And the distribution cabinet and transformer will be tucked away in a corner off to the left of the main entrance, which will be hidden by landscaping. So that's the gist of it. Unless anyone has any other questions, I could emphasize on the project a little more.
I don't think so. We have pictures of typical of the transformer and distribution cabinets that you're proposing. We have a site plan showing where this is. Seems pretty straightforward. Traditionally, before we jump to the commission, we open this up for public comment. So if there are any members of the public who'd like to speak about this case, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
I guess I had intended to be a member of the public. I misunderstood what a panelist.
Nicholas, I'm going to demote you to an attendee then in that case. Apologies, and then I'll allow you to speak. Sorry about that, Chair Parks.
No problem.
All right. I am allowing, let's see, Nicholas Linsky to speak. And let's start the timer.
Can you all see the timer?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm a resident of Atherton Street, and I'm one of the people that would get a charging station. I wanted to thank the Historical Commission for taking the time to consider this. I know you're very busy. I would have a hardship if I were to get an electric vehicle, and before very long, that's going to be the only thing I can get is an electric vehicle. And if I didn't have a place to charge it at home, then I would always be looking for some place to charge it, which would be problematic for me and for the other residents in the building, I believe. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
All right. I am now promoting, forgive me if I mispronounced your name, but Baji Joshi to speak.
Yes, hi, my name is Baz Joshi, 170 Central Street, Somerville. I think I don't see any problem with charging station. But I don't know whether on the long run, whether electric cars is the best way to go. I think hybrids are better cars. That's my experience. I have no objections of putting charging stations there. Just my thought. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
All right, Chair Parks, there's no one else with their hand raised to speak.
All right. With that, then I'll close the public comment portion of this hearing, this case, and see who in the commission has thoughts on this.
I mean, my quick reaction is I think as the applicant's proposal makes pretty clear that the EV chargers themselves are fairly unobtrusive. I think the choice of the posts is the black posts. They're going to blend in pretty well with the fence and the lighting. If for some reason, infrastructure needs change and so forth, these are fairly reversible. You could take them back out again and so forth. I don't think there's too much of an impact from the historic character from them themselves. And I think the transformer and the distribution cabinet are fairly minimally visible. But I do wonder, especially in the photos, you have the transformer is in green, the distribution cabinet is in gray. I know those could in theory be painted. Do you have plans in terms of color or finish for those larger structures? Because something in a dark green or whatever, I'd aim away from black because I think that'll jump too much back there. But if you went with a darker green or something, I assume they can both be painted in the same color. I've run into plenty of black painted utility cabinets in the past.
Yeah, haven't asked that question. I don't see why not. I mean, we could paint them a dark green, which would blend in with the
The
shrubs
shrubs.
that will be going in front of it. So it's just, I don't see that we
Okay.
have to have a different color for a transformer cabinet and a different color for a distribution cabinet. So can certainly inquire about that.
Yeah. And so, I believe we don't have jurisdiction specifically over shrubs and so forth, I think, but the plan is to screen these with shrubs.
Yes,
Did I hear you say that? Okay.
like
Nice.
like yews or
Arborvitae or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah, some sort
something
of
that
visibility.
stays green all winter.
Yeah, exactly. I think that'd be the right way to go. Yeah. And you've got room back there for clearances around them and so forth, so
Right.
mostly. Yeah. I think that seems like a good approach to me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I can go. So did I hear that are there 12 units in the building? So is there one for each unit? Is that the idea?
There's 20 units in the building,
Okay,
and 12 of the unit owners have shared interest or have interest in putting in a charging station. That's
Okay.
not to say down the road there might be more people that want
Right.
this, especially if they change ownership.
Correct.
But as of now, there are 12 out of the 20.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting at. Do you foresee there to be plans to add more later on? There's obviously more than 12 parking spots in that lot. So I didn't know if you were planning on, if you thought that could be a potential in the future, but 12 for now, that makes sense.
I would think down the road there you would be adding them as
Yeah.
people, lean more towards electric vehicles. With some of those parking spaces, as we have done with this current plan, they would be sharing a charger, so you wouldn't have like 8 more pedestals put in. You might have 4, and then 2
Right.
units share one dual pedestal.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm in favor of the proposal. I don't see any major issues with it. Kind of my 2 cents.
Great, thank you.
I would agree. I think that it's just a matter of time before we're going to see a lot of these condo buildings needing charging stations. I do appreciate that you're trying to keep with a more slimmer look. Some of them are really clunky and not attractive at all. And since it's already a parking lot, I think we just might need to allow this to happen and understand that things have changed over time with the building and our cars are changing too. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Your thoughts?
I don't have anything really that substantive to add other than I agree with all the comments that I've heard and I appreciate again just the quality of the work that you guys do with Atherton Street, the property there's been before us a number of times over the years for roofing issues or whatever it may be. And the plans are very well thought out and the documentation that you provide is very thorough and that makes it much easier for us to be able to just take a quick review. So again, very nicely done on your behalf. We appreciate that and I wish you luck with it all.
Great, thank you. And there's always more to come.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Keep you guys on your toes.
Yeah. I agree. I have no problem with this. I know that charging apartment buildings is a big issue with EVs. And so conquering that one is important. It looks like you've made good efforts to tuck these things away. I'm curious if the folks who don't have them, will you be conduiting to their spots if they ever want to put them in the future without having to dig new runs in for them?
I'm not sure how the plan will go, and it depends on who wants them. but there's enough connections around the parking lot that we wouldn't have to do I think you would just daisy chain off the existing one that's right there. Is my, that's what I expect, but that's, down the road, I guess, depending on how many more people want them, and it
Yeah.
would be at the cost of obviously, the unit owner to do all the trenching and all that, whereas now it's Eversource is paying for that, so.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is
It's-
another big reason why we want to take advantage of this, is because
Yeah.
this is costing a fraction of what it would be if we didn't have Eversource paying for a lot of it.
Yeah. That's totally beside the point as far as we're concerned. I was just curious. So I'm fine with this.
It is probably worth seeing with Eversource too, though, if they can size the distribution cabinet now so that it's sized for potentially a full build out.
It is actually, we planned it
Oh,
so
great.
that, yeah, when the cabinets go from either 10 ports or 20 ports. And so we pushed to get the 12 people wanting them.
Yeah.
So that got us into the 20 port cabinet. So we have
Perfect.
plenty of room to add, because that was the plan going down. We never wanted to go back and
Yeah.
dig up one cabinet to put in a larger cabinet. So that was definitely in the thought process.
And the transformer too, that would have the capacity for it.
Yep.
Of course, transformers take for ages now to get, from what I hear. I don't know if they'll expedite.
Terrible.
Oh, I haven't been, well, right now the ground's frozen, so we probably won't be doing anything until spring as far as trenching goes, so. I haven't heard anything about a delay on transformers, but
Okay.
you never know.
Yep.
In
But as
my
far as the
experience,
Historic Commission is concerned, I think this is fine
Great, thank you.
for me.
are you ready to entertain a motion then,
Yeah.
Chairman?
Someone wants to make that motion?
I would move to grant a certificate of appropriateness to the proposed work.
I'll second that.
Yeah, we have a motion by Mr. Shagnon, seconded by Ms. Price for approving. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll do a roll call, starting with Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. There you have it, folks. Have fun
Great,
wiring
thank you
your.
very much.
Good luck.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm signing off.
right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was the first of our two cases. The second is, let me get my agenda back here. Pardon me for a second. Shoot. Just closed the wrong window. The next, shoot. All right, folks. There it is. Okay, the next case is HP 24-000055. Address is 170 Central Street. The applicant is Doug White. The owner is Buzz Joshi. The applicant seeks a certificate of appropriateness to alter an LHC property by replacing the siding, roofing, window framing, and trim of the building. Is the applicant here tonight?
Yes. This is Baz Joshi. Good evening.
Good evening. So we have a very lengthy staff report and all that. Could you just give us a rundown of what you're planning to do for the meeting?
Sure. I believe my architect, Doug Shoup, he should be on the call as well.
Madison Anthony speaking. I am promoting him now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm here.
Welcome. So could one of you give us a narrative about your intended scope, in particular, which things you intend to replace, which things you intend to restore. It looks like you're giving the place a complete redo on the exterior.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. Replace siding, the trim, the slate roof. The windows are going to stay for now. So we're just basically trying to recreate everything that is existing with new materials.
Okay. So I'm looking at pictures in the report. You've got quite a lot in here. And which things are you intending to keep? You're proposing quite a lot of synthetic or alternative materials. Which
Correct.
things are you not proposing to replace in that way? Let's go backwards in that.
Well, if you've driven by the building anytime recently, you can see that there's a lot of deterioration and a lot of those materials, especially up near the roof level. There's a tremendous amount of rot, deterioration. There's been repairs or some sort of thing that were done, I think probably before Josh's family owned that property. And I think at some point, yeah. So at some point, it was done poorly and has led to more damage, which we don't really know the full extent of it until we get those shingles off of there, because I can put my finger through a lot of those. I'm not exactly sure what to call them, but they're like the little pilasters beside the dormer windows around the mansard roof. Those are in the worst shape. The roof is in terrible shape. The siding is in terrible shape, and a lot of the brackets are actually okay. Our intention is to some of those have been removed already because we need to see whether they were in decent condition. It's because they were, they're always been underneath the soffit overhang. They've remained in fairly decent shape. So the game plan there is just to, because those are irreplaceable to match them. So the game plan with those are to try to pull them off, scrape them, and stain them and re-stain them with a opaque stain, and then replace them. But most of the trim was originally probably pine, is not salvageable. So our game plan was to replace everything that we could and find a matching the trim boards and the band molding and recreate most of that stuff out of AZEK. That's a product that I've been using for almost 30 years now, and found that it's one of the best on the market. I mean, there are other alternatives that are pretty much the same thing, but AZEK makes the best version of that because they were the originators of that vinyl replacement. It's just their technology is better than most of your cheaper brands. I know when I spoke with, I'm not sure it was Andrew or someone else on the historical commission a few months back about this Boral stuff. I've never used it, but what I've read is not that great in terms of its performance. It's very brittle, harder to work with in the AZEK. I personally put AZEK on my own house. And the great thing about that is you're never going to get any insects boring into it. The pine attracts a lot of the wood boring bees, which is not a good thing to have. They're really hard to get rid of. They'll find another place to bore through the side of the siding. So we're not really sure what we're going to find when we get underneath the shingles, but there's leaks in the existing ceiling on the upper level. And we know that there's probably going to be a lot of rot in the plywood. So the game plan, I think, really here is to take this house and make it look as close as possible with materials that are well proven in, in today's market, that have longer warranties than wood, cedar siding and pine and the materials. And the slate really is problematic because it's and if you go through the submission that I had, you can see how thin the slate is. It's very brittle. It's not the kind of slate you're going to find today for as replacement slate. I've never really seen any that thin. And I know, of course, slate is lasts a long time, and it has lasted a long time, but it has been repaired poorly in the past. And I don't see being able to replace this whole roof in slate, take it off and replace it because of the nature of the thinness of it. So we're proposing a basically recycled, sustainable product, which is made out of plastics, rubber and plastics, that is acceptable for it's basically an imitation slate that will look very similar to what we have up there and give it that same look. So there's a ton of work if you look at every one of these dormers. When you go through the report and look at the details there, there's a lot going on there. And it's a much bigger project than most people think. I mean, you can see, if you look at that first picture on the proposed exterior, updates, you can see the what do I want to say? The trim on the side, the front two sides of the house, which is not maintained around the rear side. The coins are in tough shape, and we're planning on replacing those. And those will have to be custom made, really, out of because they do have a bevel to them. So there's, like I said, there's a tremendous amount of work that's going to be involved in this, just manual labor, to try to recreate as closely as possible. I think that the spirit and intent of the whole of taking a building like this that has historic value is to try to update it, reuse materials that are make sense, not only economically, but just from a terms of longevity in today's market. So but it's all exterior work. I know there's the maintenance section in the historical commission. It's really maintaining what's there because it hasn't been maintained for a long time, and you can tell by its condition. So let's try and replace it, make it look like it's brand new, and and that's the goal. And so I'm open to get into questions that you may have based on the submission. I did submit some project that was done. The roof was done over. If you read into it's an interesting project, but let me grab my, because I'm seeing you. My computer decided to crash on me while I started the movie, when I started the Zoom. And so I'm on my laptop now, so I'm a little bit out of whack, but let's see. Give me a break. Give me a second here. I want to jump to my Adobe, look at, the Blair House. That's the project in Washington, Iowa. They took a building that's on the National Trust, or it's the National Register of Historic Places, and replaced the entire roof with a synthetic material made by EcoStar. And if you look at the submission that I gave you, it shows the different photos of the project. And I was able to find an original photo, and this has much nicer look to it. And this similar to, it's fairly close to what we're trying to recreate, which if in the what I call it the report in the main exterior renovations, if you go through the pages, you can see a closer look, like say on page, let me see if I can scroll through here. On page, let's see. Page 12, you can see that there's different, similar kind of details that are original to the house that have been that we'd like to recreate as close as possible with similar style of shingle.
Chair Parks,
Yes.
I just want to make sure that, the questions that you asked get answered, because I am not sure if I heard that yet exactly. I know we touched a little bit on the brackets about what's
Yeah.
being preserved, but I just want to make sure we get back to the substance of your question. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, customarily, before we start getting into it, we usually take public comment, but since we're sort of setting the framework for what you're proposing, it sounds like I'm just reading through your report. The only thing you intend to keep is the brackets. And woodwork, the balustrade and columns at the low front porch. Is there anything?
Yeah, the front porch, those are not, I don't believe those are original, I'll be
No,
honest.
they're not. Yes, it's, well, yeah. But then I see some other spots like the little brackets carefully removed, sand stain. It's really is that corner boards, there's a water shield.
Chair Parks, I do notice a few other places, like on page 24 of the staff report, it points out the custom, basically the custom shaped roof crown moldings, the ornamental trim pieces that are really decorative and things like that seem to be scrape sand and paint. Basically anything that would be very difficult to replicate in basic seems to be being preserved from what I can see.
Well, I have some questions. I think at this point, if you're through, applicant, we'll move to public comment and then we can continue. I have a little list of questions and concerns and things like that.
Sure.
It's actually kind of complicated. If there are any members of the public who'd like to speak about this case, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
Chair Parks, this is Madison Anthony speaking. I don't see any members of the public raising their hand to speak.
Okay. In that case, I'll close the public comment portion of this case.
Oh, wait, we have one hand.
All right, I
Sorry about
unclose it. I reopen the public comment.
Okay. I am promoting Raymond Parsons to speak. Whenever you're ready, Raymond.
I'm sorry. This is Ray Parsons. How you doing?
Good.
I lived at 166 Central Street. Raj has been my neighbor I've been on Central Street for 33 years now. I think he should be allowed to redo the house. The house does need work, a lot of work. And at the top, if you look under at your pictures underneath the overhang there, you see giant's holes, and those are where the squirrels are getting in. The squirrels getting in and ruin the whole house. For me, I would love to see the house redone. It's been painted before, when I don't know how many years ago, but it just seems to be peeling all apart against the wood slabs are coming off the siding. They're great neighbors. Their tenants are awesome. I've never had any. Are you there? I'm sorry. I've never had any trouble with any of them. They try to keep up with the property, but the property seems to be going downhill. So I would really love to see you guys pass this so they can get this done and make Central Street, the upper Central Street look good. As it did before back in the day. Thank you. Sorry. That's it.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Right, this is Madison Anthony speaking again. I do not see any other hands raised right now.
Okay, I'll reclose the public comment for this case. And just to, I mean, there are a lot of little aspects to this, but just to the background, the guidelines officially that we use do not allow for the use of any synthetic materials on our exterior renovations. Those guidelines are old, and we have a precedent of allowing, in somewhat a very discretionary way, various synthetic materials if you look at our past cases. And it's something that it's really hard to set a ground, a framework for one that works or not. There's certain places where synthetics just last longer and they're not up in front and you're right in front of you, and it makes sense to allow them. But it's sort of a discussion that I think we need to have as a commission. And there are different, there's the roof, there's the wood siding, there's the trim and all the decorative stuff. Those are really the angles. And then something to consider is how visible is it? How close to the ground is it? And there was some other question I had for you, but it's gone, it'll come up. So with that, I'll ask the commission what your thoughts are. Also about thoughts about how you might want to approach this particular case, since they're different angles and different categories.
And I'll go first. Why not? My first reaction is that looking at it, I mean, very clearly to me, the parts that they are talking about preserving, on the trim especially, seem to be the ones that have survived in good enough shape and would be really difficult to replicate. And that most, if not all of what's a large proportion of what's proposed for replacement is very definitely deteriorated to the point where certainly couldn't repair and reuse. So that all makes sense. And then it's just a question of what material to make that replacement out of. There's a lot of crown molding that doesn't seem to be in particularly bad shape that is proposed for a replacement with ASIC. And I hear the applicant team in terms of the difficulty of maintaining that long term, and that some of it may look okay because it's got a coat of paint over wood that's in rough shape and you won't really know until you start poking at it. Which all makes sense. I'm trying to think. The roof slates are a bit of a conundrum for me in that, I mean, looking at some of the areas of damage, I don't know, I'm not enough of an expert on slate roofs. Grew up in a house with a slate roof, but it was a much simpler slate roof than this. And we were frequently picking up slates in the driveway, so. Yeah, I mean, there are some areas where the a thin cuts, I probably have lost my connection. Yep.
Are you there still, I think? Well, maybe not. You're stationary. You're
I
back.
apologize. I'm having internet trouble. I appear to be back. I'm not sure where I cut out on that, but.
Well, could I interject and ask the applicant, have you had a slate roof person look at this and tell you what would be involved with restoring the slate or keeping it versus obviously the route you've taken?
That would be a question for the contractor, who I don't believe is on this. I don't think he would know how to get on a Zoom call.
Okay.
So, But yeah, I'm not sure if that's been done.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Hi, Sarah White. So sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. I'm not sure if anybody else saw it, but the contractor is here. His name is Doug White. He does have his hand raised.
Okay.
This
Madison, I don't have,
is,
yeah, could you unmute him? I don't
yes.
have the ability. Thanks so much.
Yes, I will promote him. All right, he should
All
be
right,
there
Doug.
now.
You ready? So you ask about the roof. Here's the problem with the roof. The roof is made up of, it was originally a slate roof. What happens with slate is if anybody, it expands and contracts in the winter for one thing and will crack. And if anybody walks on it at all to try to fix it, slate will crack. You won't know it cracks until the next winter when it expands, breaks, and that's why it falls off. And that's why that gentleman was always picking it up out of his driveway. And the roof is also made of, is also 3-tab shingle originally. Well, not originally, but somebody had replaced, like, say, half of the roof with a 3-tab shingle, one color and then another color. So it's in really rough shape. The only way to fix this roof is to strip it down to the boarding, replace any of the broken, rotten wood that's underneath, ice shield the whole thing, and then re-roof it. That's the only way you can fix this roof. It can't be patched.
The 3-tab, you mean the 3-tab are up on the upper part, not the?
Oh yeah, the whole front of the upper part is a 3-tab shingle. I think it's white. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's definitely a 3-tab shingle. So it's like a mixture of slate, 3-tab shingle, and then another shingle.
You mean on the in the mansard part? There's 3-tab shingles, or the upper
the main whole roof upper on top of all those the 15 windows that go around the top floor. Those are tin.
Yeah.
And those are completely rotted. And somebody has thrown ice shield on top of it, but that's not the answer. They need to be reshingled too.
So the 3-tab is up on the upper part that we don't see from the street.
Correct.
Exactly. You don't see it from the street.
Okay.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, when it comes to slate, usually a slate specialist would make the call about what's salvageable. I've seen them often recommending replacement. I see definitely from your photos that there's a lot of damage to them. And I don't know at what point they'd say, look, it's more work to patch stuff in. We can't get the original slate, that kind of stuff versus a new one.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
If I could, I don't think that your original question was asked as to whether or not an expert in slate roofing had been brought out to look at the roof, the slate portion of the roof.
Oh, right. Yeah, was a slate specialist ever brought out to evaluate it?
No, I mean, only myself. I'm 64 and I've been doing roofing since I was 18, 17. So, I mean, I know about roofing, but I don't know. I'm not
So, Mr. Chairman, one of my concerns would be that we haven't had a slate roof company come out and take a look at it. I mean, I think it's certainly understandable that the slate roof might have to be replaced. There might be some areas that could be repaired, but slate is coming from a family of slate roofers. It will last a very, very long time. And one of the things that need to be replaced most tend to be the nails, right? The copper nails tend to need to be replaced. And of course, that there will be certainly slates that, they get broken and whatnot. But I think that we don't have the feedback from a slate roofer. So I think that is important to take into consideration. And so there are plenty out there. I know that you can find them through Preservation Massachusetts, and we have even a member of our own community who works for a slate roofing company and does a lot of slate roofing in the area. So I think that it might be worthwhile to bring somebody out. And even if they're going to tell you that you need to replace the slate, then at least you have that expert opinion from the slate roofer. And then like the shingles and the tin and all that stuff, you just deal with that separately. But Mr. Chairman, that would be just a thought for you.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's kind of the thing we do sometimes, like with window replacements. People often say we need to replace the windows, but they haven't really had anyone ever look at restoring to give them what that process would be. And you may well be right. I see the damage. So, but it would be good to have another set of eyes there who specializes in this, who could say, give you more info on that. And I also think, so here, I'm just jumping the gun here, but when you're talking about using AZEC, I've used AZEC before too, and I know it has its benefits and also limitations. And I'm curious, where you're talking about replacing woodwork that's shaped with AZEC, are you proposing having a mill workshop actually reproduce, like knives made and reproduced original profiles out of AZEC? Or are you looking to get something off the shelf that looks the closest possible?
Well, I mean, Doug can even answer. Either Doug can answer this, but
Off the shelf.
yeah, you can buy AZEC and you don't really see it that often, but you can order sheets of AZEC that are 5/4 thick, and which is basically what those mansard roof window sides are. And so we can take one off, use the profile as a jig, and cut the sides. In the inside, you would not be AZEC. We would have to use some sort of a fur or something in there that we would stain thoroughly before we put it in there, so it would maintain its integrity over time. And there's nothing really you can reproduce unless you build a jig and have it made out of foam or something like that. There's a company called Fipon, and I think they do that, but
you're talking about the brackets?
That really gets into a much more complicated thing. But I think what's there can be you can purchase products, AZEC type products. They have different profiles as well for trim and crown molding and band molding, that sort of thing, that are virtually identical. Every house is a little bit different in the kind of moldings they use, but they pretty much match as most of the common sizes. And you can take those and like I said, just the thicker pieces of AZEC where you could stack them and then cut trim out of that. So when I say it's a lot of work, it's going to be a lot of hand work involved. But I prefer to use a product that I know is not going to deteriorate over time, and it's all white anyhow. You don't have to paint the AZEC. And every time you put a screw in it, they have plugs. That's the great thing about it, is they sell their system involves all hidden fasteners, which is very nice. So
so how would you replace the coins?
Well, yeah, so the coins are another issue, because they do have a slight taper to around the four sides, so it's like basically a pyramid on its side, right?
They're beveled.
Pardon me?
They're beveled.
Yeah, beveled.
Yep.
So so I mean, I was talking to Doug about that. I mean, Doug, maybe you can elaborate on how you plan on replicating those.
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
So the coins, the square blocks that are on the corner boards, they're super wide corner boards on the side. Those are easily replaced with the thick AZEC, but the coins are just stacked on top of that.
Yeah, what they're made, they're like a 10-inch. Some are 10-inch, some are 12-inch, and they have like a 40-degree angle on them, on each. It's beveled around each one.
It's less than that, but they're not. Yeah, they're not that
and
much.
Then
they're not beveled that much. But.
And they're fastened to a 5/4 piece of wood now. So all it was a 12-inch piece of wood, or no, it was a 16-inch piece of wood with a 10-inch and 12-inch piece on it.
Okay, I'm looking at a
Would have
picture
been
of the
like,
coins. You've got roping, you've got all kinds
there's
of
ropes
details.
in the corner.
Yeah. I mean, let me back up and say my approach to synthetic materials is that when they are up high, if they're in high weather, well, high weather areas like water tables, things like that, flat, uncomplicated, unfussy things, or up high where you don't see it as much, it works better. I have a feeling that this project is not just going to become a plastic version of its original self with the next best thing. I think there's going to be a good bit of wood remaining on there, and I question if you're not able to actually shape things and replicate moldings. I'm a little concerned that we're going to end up with sort of like the lumberyards version of what it would have been that's offered by AZEC in 2024, 25. So I'm a little bit skeptical that you're going to be able to pull off everything you suggest using these synthetic materials. Some things I think, yes, the flat stock way up high. I hate to see ripping out bed moldings there just to make them something that doesn't have to get painted so often and then it becomes stark white forever. So I mean, I have some concerns, but who else in the commission? I've been sort of hogging the time. Who else has some thoughts about it?
I mean, I agree with you. The guidelines that we are asked to follow are that whenever possible, you should be preserving the existing materials. And when those materials are beyond repair, so rot, damage beyond repair, that they need to be replaced with the same material. There's obviously a lot of places on the house that need to be replaced, but the question that I have is that going to be a synthetic material or a wood material? I think following our guidelines, we should be saying that all of the siding and the trim, the window frames and all of that should remain or should match the original material, so the wood material. The one question or the one place where I would maybe have different opinion is on the roof, the slate roof, just how, again, we don't have, I think, all the information, but that is a more difficult question to answer. I know that I'm in a historic building that has a synthetic roof, but I don't know when that all happened. But we have a synthetic slate that looks real and I think maintains much better. And because it's higher up, you're not looking directly at it as if, as the trim and the things that you would see at the first level around the porch and things like that. So my initial thought was siding, trim, the porch and all of that should be as much wood as possible to match the existing. It is a local historic, it's in a historic district for a reason. But I would have other thoughts when it came to the roof potentially.
Thanks, Ted.
Yep.
I'll jump in here. I agree with most of what Dan has said. First off, I want to applaud you for taking on such a project. It's a wonderful house. It really is. And I appreciate that you want to bring it back to what it was. That being said, I know that living in a local historic district costs a little bit more money to maintain and repair and restore things because we are lucky enough to live in an old building and we're stewards of them. And I have a very strong opinion about stripping beautiful moldings off and just replacing them with not fully over the counter, but just all AZEC. So I think anything that's wood should be replaced with wood. I am a huge fan of hardy plank siding, and however, does all of the siding really need to be replaced or just a little bit of it? And the one place I don't agree with what's been said is if there's any possible way to restore the roof. It's been there for 130 years. It's lasted a long, long time, and it should be maintained. So I understand that what's underneath might be compromised and there might need to be repairs done. But I think at the end of it all, it will last another 130 years if done appropriately. And I think that this is a lot of work, and I wish there was a way that we could, in a spreadsheet format, go through everything that's being kept and proposed to be kept and everything that's going to be stripped down with over-the-counter AZAC, and then just what you say you are going to do in remilling the AZAC. I just think it needs to be in a more clear format, and it just, I guess, does anybody have any proposals on how to make this easier? Or do we just table this and wait to hear back on the roof?
Well, thank you. I think we need to hear back on the roof anyway. But I personally think that a material, if you're theoretically, I'm looking at the brackets up there, if one could put a synthetic there that could be completely painted and trim out exactly like wood, that's one thing. I'm concerned that if we say yes to any of the AZAC, that we're going to find ourselves looking at the, like, oh, we got rid of this fan molding here and we just got this other one that looks kind of like it, and all of a sudden it's like, or stuff's getting ripped out to make it consistent that didn't need to be ripped out. So I don't feel comfortable approving any synthetics unless we know more exactly what it would be, and like spot by spot, and I would want to see the comparison of that, or we could just say no and keep everything wood. I think that good places for AZAC are like the fascia boards that receive the gutters that get massive abuse. Certain areas of flat stock way up high, I think if they get painted, you probably wouldn't notice it. I wouldn't want anything down, below the second story to be plastic, because I think you would see it. So Denise, your question, I don't know if there's a way right now to really do that, because there's a lot of uncertainty on the roof and what the proposal for synthetics is, if we're going to allow that could be. If we say no on synthetics, period, then that kind of answers that.
Right. I think, Chair Parks, do I hear you commenting on the, like, for example, the flat backer board that's at the corners behind the coins? Like, whatever we do about the coins themselves, I agree, are sort of tough to.
I don't think the coins, I don't really see a realistic way to make those out of AZAC, unless somebody is a miracle carpenter to look, I can make that exact shape. But the thing is, when you're down low, then you do actually, you're aware of the flatness of it, and you don't see the texture of wood and stuff like that. I'm thinking more, if I look up at the soffits, or if
I could see that sort of thing theoretically, but the flat backer board that's behind the coins, though, like hypothetically, there's the coins go in and out, but then behind them there's a piece of trim that's the full width, which is sort of an odd detail, but
I'm trying to go down and find it, picture. I think, without having actually found the coin picture yet, I just need to be, it needs to be proven to me that this can be done, and I don't see that here.
Page 19 of the staff report.
I just found it. Yep.
Can I just ask, what's the advantage of doing that in AZAC versus A, trying to preserve it, or B, doing it in wood? Is it because it's cheaper? I mean, we're not worried about bees in the coins, right? What is the concern of not doing it in wood? Is it just the cost issue? Why is that the proposal versus just trying to replace some of this in wood? Yeah.
Hey, Doug White, can you address that? AZAC versus replacing the coins, the tapered wood at the corners in wood versus AZAC.
Well, he's asking about the cost. I think AZAC costs more than wood.
Right, so then why is it proposed? Is it because of its longevity, because it'll last longer? Why are
Because
you proposing it?
it'll last longer.
Okay.
And you can paint it. They do make a primary and a paint to paint it any color you want. I'm not sure how long the paint lasts on it, but there is, paints for AZACs.
Yep.
And I see spots like, actually, I think it's already been replaced with AZAC down below the coins there. Looking at the photo on page 19. I think I don't, at this point, I don't think we would just reject it, but I think we should at least continue this until we can have more of a discussion about that. I'm not comfortable with AZAC unless it can be shown that it's matching exactly what it would be replacing, and it's way up high where you wouldn't be aware of the texture difference. And for the roof, I feel like we need to have a slate company look at it and say, yes, this was what we can and can't do. This is the condition of things.
It looks like the applicant might have his hand raised. Is that right?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time and listening to my concern. This home, we bought the home in 1995. My parents bought this house, and both of my parents are deceased, and I'd like to restore the house the way it was. It's a major project undertaking, and the cost has been enormous. It's just too expensive. I can't afford it. But the house is in really terrible shape. The siding was, it has been neglected over the years. I did had a slate company come by and gave me an estimate. An estimate is just impossible for us to afford unless the city of Somerville has a restoration funding to restore this house. I would be happy to apply for some sort of funding through the grant from city of Somerville.
So you had a slate company look at it? Did they give
Yes,
you
I did.
a
Yes, I
report
did.
or something?
Yes, I did. Yes, matter of fact, I had two estimates came in, and it just we cannot afford to replace with this slate. It's just too expensive. I mean,
Well, maybe you could
the whole
perhaps-
house the whole house needs caring. I mean, it's deterring. It's not. We're not making any additions. We just want to restore back to the house, and my goal is for our family to stay in this house as long as possible. It's my it's a sentimental value to because this is my parents' home.
But it might be useful if you could forward that information to staff to distribute. And I'm also thinking of another approach. Often with restoration projects in a larger scale, your architect can do a more detailed description of exactly what they'll draw elevations and actually, circle things and say, replace this, keep this. And it's a little more involved. And that would give us a better picture of exactly what you would do. Because right now I'm basically seeing replace if possible, or possibly just general scope items without really telling us how much of this would be replaced.
Well, the problem is we don't know because we don't know how much damage has been done. Once you start stripping the siding, we don't know what the extent of the damage is. Just to give you our, where we come from. Back in '95, when my parents bought the house, we had worked with the historical commission, and all the plans according to their approval. And my parents received a award from the historical commission, and we had to replace gutter maybe about 10 years ago. So when my mother was alive, and somebody from the historical commission had came by the house and walked through, and I wish we can do that same thing. Everything, the problem is lack of communication. Zoom. I'm not a technology person. My contractor is not a technology person. It will be, it will be, it will be in the best interest of, for as a homeowner and a contractor, somebody from the historical commission come to the property and just inspect how bad the condition is. And we can show them the material. We have taken down some of the moldings. We want to restore as close as possible.
I will say, as Ms. Price said earlier, I think I also applaud you for taking this on and for the goal you have, and you clearly have the right intentions. The whole team has good intentions about trying to restore this in a maintenance friendly manner. But there's also the concerns and the guidelines we're bound on or directed by regarding materials, I think, that are being raised. I mean, to some extent, as Mr. White pointed out, replacing a lot of this in wood for the short term would be cheaper than AZEC. And I understand and acknowledge that long-term wise, then you need to keep up with the painting of it and everything else, which is its own sort of question. But
Well,
yeah, some of these I think you'd find would be incredibly difficult to replicate out of ASIC, and they're definitely make sense to replace with wood. And I agree with Chair Parks. I think, a little bit more detail. There are places in the detailed proposal that Mr. Shoup's office prepared that have, particular call outs for the AZEC products, like the back band with a molding number and so forth. It'd be great to see in places like that a side-by-side comparison of like what the actual profile is currently and what the proposed replacement is. To see how close a match it is and kind of judge whether it'd be visible, to Chair Parks's point about stuff up higher where the texture is not an issue might be reasonable to replace if it's appearance wise pretty consistent. I do wonder, one thing we haven't talked about much as a commission is the siding, the question of wood siding versus hardy plank. And I think my question would be how much of the siding itself is in poor enough shape that it needs replacement versus, because if it's a small enough quantity, then it might make more sense to replace the siding just with wood for consistency. If you end up having to replace 80–90% of it, then that's its own question of hardy plank versus wood, if it's not going to be the original material.
So the 80% of the sidings are in tough shape.
Okay.
The gutters needs to be replaced too. The lot of downspouts are gone.
Yeah.
And I think my father had repaired the roof some time ago, and it's not in good shape at all. I don't think we had a good contractor back then. I have full trust in Doug White, and I'm full trust in the architect. And it is my intent to do a as close as the house was built in 1860. I don't think we can match everything by line. We just want to restore the house to so it stands there for another 100 years.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think anybody on the commission is in disagreement about wanting to restore the house. It's just about what material should you use? Is it wood or some new synthetic material? I think that's the major question that we're asking. And
AZAC, I mean, we'll replace AZAC as much as possible, which I mean, we'll work with the commission. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
And we have done in the past, and
yeah,
and I would greatly appreciate if we can get a tentative approval so we can start this project. I'm happy to work with. We can come back and we can have somebody from the historical commission come by and walk through on the property to give a thumbs up that I don't know what else I can assure you. I'm an honorable citizen. I tend to work with the historical commission, and it's a undertaking. It's a huge undertaking for me. I've never done anything like this before, and I asking your blessings on this project, please. Thank you.
Sure. I think I'm looking at a page that I don't think there's anything we could say right now that would lay down the law as to exactly what goes where and how. But I'm looking at, for example, the dormers. I'm looking at your page 20, which is 31 in the PDFs. And you have an elaborate, all the woodwork around each dormer with the brackets and the pediments and all that kind of stuff. A lot of it can just be scraped and painted. Some parts there might be a little bit too far weathered, the flat areas. The little wings that the brackets that project out that cover the cut ends of the mansard basically seem to have received the most amount of weather. So something like that, if one were to say, I could take that and reproduce that the walls in AZEC that's scrolled exactly that matches that and incorporate it with all the wood, since that gets most of the weather, that's up high, it's 2.5 stories up. I could see something like that being in the AZEC, and then you have sort of a hybrid thing. It all gets painted out when you're done. You're still gonna have to deal with painting in the future, but the stuff that gets most of the weather, maybe it's not that. Traditionally, what you'd use is mostly a mahogany or something that's more rot resistant, or Spanish cedar for those things. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But I don't want to be in the role of like someone going out there every day to say yes or no to everything. And I don't want to give anyone carte blanche right now to just, to wing it and say like, I want to go with plastic here because it's, we don't want to paint this in the future.
No, I have no intention doing that. I mean, I won't. I'm rest assured that I fully cooperate with the historical commission.
Sure. And I respect that. Yeah, I'm not trying to. You're doing an honorable thing here by fixing this building up. I just think that perhaps the goal to avoid having to paint in the future, there's a risk that you'll do the wrong thing now. And if you think about it, setting precedent wise, if we were to say to anybody in the future, it's like, go ahead and use AZEC because you don't have to paint it, then what are we doing here? It's sort of like the whole idea with this building is it's precious enough that you need to keep things. And yes, they do require more maintenance sometimes. So
could I say something? Why don't we make this simple? We'll get a slate company out there, or we can get 2 different ones to give us their opinion, and a price on what it'll cost, what's needed. And then if you would like, I could make a one of the windows up, a window frame, and show you what it'll look like. It's gonna have to be, you know, out of AZAC. Go ahead and just make one on a bench. And I don't know. I mean, that's in the old days when I would go to the historical society, like in Chelsea, you would bring the parts in. You know,
Yeah.
we didn't do it online. You bring in what you were going to use, the window you're going to use. You know, I mean, this is goes back years ago, but maybe I can make something up to show you the coins, what the coins would look like, what the window trim itself. We could make how we could make one up for you and get an estimate on the roofing from a couple different companies, if that would help you guys.
Certain things like the slate, if we were to allow that the slate needs to be replaced with something, I would want to see samples of the materials you're proposing.
Yeah.
But we don't, normally a project like this that would come to us or wouldn't come to us because it's a repair and replace in kind, they would literally just do everything out of wood. And if you were proposing to do this all out of wood and matching material, you wouldn't even come to us. You would go to staff for a staff level approval of, I think, certificate of non, and Sarah could correct me there, but if everything were getting replaced in kind, that would be that, and wood for wood.
Mr. Chairman, through you, that is correct. If it were wood for wood, then it would be replacement in kind and it could be approved at staff level. However, we would caveat it by saying every dimension, every detail, every profile must be exactly the same as what's there now. And then the applicant would have to show us proof, photographic proof at the end of the project. And if it weren't that way, then they'd be coming back before you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's sort of why we don't often get into super duper detail with a project like this. If there's no change in materiality, there's that process.
And to put it a little bit clearer, I think if wherever it were feasible to do so, you were proposing replacing it in wood, and then that would simply sail through, and you'd be able to come to us with the few places like, you know, that because of the extensive weathering and because of the simplicity of the profile, we want to replace the brackets at the bottom of those dormers that pop out through the mansard with AZEK instead, because we can, you know, cut it as Doug White said, you know, you cut a slab of AZEK to match that. And from down at ground level, you probably wouldn't know the difference. And I think from my perspective, looking at how badly those have weathered compared to everything else, that seems like something that might make sense to do. But on the flip side, replacing the, you know, the crown molding under the edge of the roof, where it's mostly not in terrible shape, but where if you replace some of it with AZEK, you'd have to replace all of it. And it's not that it's in great shape. I acknowledge that it's not in good shape, but it's repairable or more easily mimicked in wood necessarily, rather than buying an AZEK that almost matches and then you have to go around replacing all of it.
This would be a good question for Mr. Doug White. He's the expert on. Doug, any thoughts on that? What can be put in as wood versus AZEK or hardy?
Well, I mean, all the moldings that are there now were handmade back in the day, and I don't think that they have it in the exact size of wood or AZEK. You know, exact dimensions. So you got to pick one or the other and go with it pretty much. And it's not like I can just go buy a piece of molding and make it match what's there. Most of it that's there is all rotted up the top anyways. I don't know if I said that right.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask or make a clarifying point?
Sure.
I think that what the question is that sorry, I think that the intent and what the HPC wants to get forward is that irrespective of, well, they have issues with the AZAC period, right? So we understand that. But if you were to use wood, it would need to be made to look exactly like the wood that is there. So you would have to be, having a knife made to, plane the molding properly. So it would have to match. It couldn't be close enough and stock and things like that. You would be talking about, some hand detail, obviously with power tools, in order to recreate that look that's there. So I just wanted to add that as a clarifying point, just to make sure that we were all on the same page with that.
Thank you. And some of that will be necessary anyway, at that level of craftsmanship for things that the brackets that are missing parts and the coins and stuff like that. You're going to need somebody who's a woodworker. When we did our place over, I just went down to wherever it was and got knives made, and you get nice exact replicas, and Spanish cedar is what they were using at the time. So I think you're going to be having to do some of that level of work anyway. It's not just a simple matter of picking something off the shelf that looks as close as you can get. I mean, often you don't happen to have elevations drawn of this building, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, because it would, often we would see a set of elevation views where you bubble in the areas and someone goes up on a ladder and you just do a more detailed description of like, keep this, the pediment over the shed dormer is good, scrape and paint and replace this. And you often see that for masonry restoration, for example, where you're going repointing and things like that. So that would be helpful, if at least just in more cohesive photos, if you want to avoid having to draw the entire thing. But that would be another way to establish and formalize what you want to do with the place. And then someone could get up there and really do a more detailed study of what you plan to do with the ladder. With all the stuff that you can see from outside, you can tell how bad it is without, I understand you might have to do some boarding and internal stuff from water leaks, but the cosmetic stuff we can kind of tell from just getting up there and close to it. So who else? To move forward to this, I think maybe I would suggest that we continue this until we can get this info on the slate. And any other thoughts from commissioners about how we would move this forward?
Yeah, I think as you said, Chair Parks, I think the information on the slate, a little bit more detail or precision on what's planned to get replaced, and in places where they are proposing, if you're continuing to propose replacing trim with something that's not, custom knifed to match it exactly, which we would encourage you to look into doing. And may end up requiring, but
it's not that expensive. I've had it done on several pieces in my house. Forgive the interruption. Yeah, it's not expensive.
Interior trim for my house too. So we wanted to match belly boards that a previous homeowner had removed, but yeah, it's if you still want to not go that route, then I think we need much more detail in terms of the profiles of the trim and what you're saying is a close enough match so that we could at least judge that. But I'd encourage you to look into, getting it milled if you have to and repairing where you can so that you don't have to replace every bit of trim in order to restore this. Because I think the goal is there. You want, Mr. Joshi wants to get it looking back to like it did, when your parents bought the place, which is, or before, when it was first built in 1860, which is a really admirable goal. And I think there are, like Chair Parks has said, places that AZEC might strongly make sense for weathering reasons, but that you could blend those together with places that are wood that actually allow you to keep more of the extant material where you're able to. And replacing kind that wouldn't even need our approval, where you're not able to keep the existing.
I do have a question for the commission. Would it be possible we can start this work in March when the weather gets better? Because I mean, this house needs to be taken care of before the next winter. It's in tough shape.
Well, we have meetings twice a month. If we can, that's, I don't know. Hypothetically, if you came to us at the next meeting and said, with a concise plan of action and it made everyone happy, then that would be that.
Sir, with all due respect, I don't know what else we could have given you. I think the architect has done he spent a lot of time preparing his report. If you have any questions, Doug White, the contractor, is here. I would like to start this project before the next winter's.
Oh.
I do not want this house to deteriorate. This is what I'm asking you, with all due respect, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think I might have some insight on like meetings, if that would be helpful.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chairman, through you, so I think that I think that regardless, what the commission is saying is that they are not in a position to vote affirmatively on this tonight, right? So they are saying that they need more information, more specific information provided for a future meeting date. Now, as to whether or not you can be heard and something approved by the commission in March, just for the first March meeting alone, we would need to have all your materials already for the first meeting in March, to analyze them and see if and write a report, etc. Second meeting in March, I don't know. It really depends on the turnaround from the applicant team and the responsiveness from the applicant team, because we've had some difficulty, for weeks on end, not hearing back when we do ask questions of the applicant team. So however you guys like reorg internally so that somebody is constantly checking their email for a ping from CitizenServe or checking CitizenServe for messages, that will be really helpful and that'll actually really go a long way. So I think in order for anything to move forward, the commission needs the info that they are asking for because they can't move forward right now. And so I'm sorry, I'm not done yet. I'm sorry, I'm not done yet.
Sure.
And so if you could then work together to get that information and have it submitted to us, and then have your team, respond, etc. That will get you moving forward. I'm sorry, I'm not done speaking yet. So we do need that type of information so that we as staff can help move you forward to the commission. Mr. Chairman, through you, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you.
We need emergency repair to be done in this house. I'm asking you to please tentatively approve so we can start the work. We'll get back to you as soon we find out more damage on this house.
If you want to proceed quickly, then anything as we mentioned earlier, anything you're repairing and replacing in kind, if it's an exact replication in wood, you don't need us to vote on that.
But you need staff. You need a staff approval.
Exactly. So those aspects, and if you want to just go with the authentic route and stick with wood and matching existing, then you get staff approval, and then we just want documentation that you actually did that. If it's possible to do that, and then if you have a proposal for something you want to do in an alternate material, you could either do a mock-up or give us a drawing showing exactly how you want to execute it, or cut comparisons, things like that. I don't know if that allows you to move forward the way you want to, but we can't tonight say go ahead and use AZAC when it makes sense, and if it looks kind of like this, we just can't proceed with that level of squishiness. So that's all we can do.
With all due respect, Chair Parks, we need to do some emergency repair on this property. It has to get done because otherwise, that house will suffer more damage. We don't want water coming in inside on the third floor.
Mr. Chairman, through you, if I may, I had advised the team many months ago that if you have a leak in your roof, right, this goes for any applicant, you can say, you can tarp it, you can do something on the inside, but you can temporarily secure it, and that's fine while you're waiting for approvals. And that's standard procedure, and if that hasn't happened to date, then it should have happened to date. So that is something you can temporarily stave off to secure it as much as you can until you get the approvals from the commission. Through Mr. Parks, thank you.
Thanks.
I think I would add that if you are trying to avoid having to come back for a meeting for the majority of this, it's been implied, but to directly state it, if you go with wood, it will end up being a lot faster because it's simply staff level review and it doesn't have to, at the pace of staff's, availability. Obviously, you're all rather busy, but all in all, it won't have to get there 3-4 weeks in advance in order to be on the next meeting schedule and then wait 3 weeks. It's as soon as you have the materials ready, you can submit it to staff. As soon as staff has a chance to look at it, if what you're saying is we need to get this done as quickly as possible, anything that gets done in wood will get done more quickly. And obviously
Right, it's the same profile, but yes.
Well, yes.
Can I bring something to attention to the commission, please?
Yeah.
170 Central Street is not on the National Register of Historical Places. I don't understand. This house should have never been on a historical. It is. I think it's a mistake that was made. I don't know, maybe by the building department. We have these.
It dates back to the Massachusetts Historical Commission, sir, and there are ties to, the history of the development of the telephone. There are strong associations with the early development of Winter Hill, one of the early landowners here, and so forth. There's
Mr. Downer. Was that Mr. Downer or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Downer, and it's one of the earliest Winter Hill houses that is still generally in well-conserved condition. And part of that, this was state register listed in.
Was this one of the 1980s ones?
Yeah,
The original one, yeah.
1989, it was local.
Mhm.
Was designated as a local historic district. I'm not sure when it went into the mass database, but
So at the time that it's designated as a local, it automatically is added to the
okay.
state.
So
Yep.
that's when.
Yep.
Yep. So late 1980s, and it sounds like it was in good shape then, relatively or well preserved, and it sounds like your family, sir, has done a whole lot to also preserve that, and thank you for that. But it's got a pretty strong historical association, which is why it shows up and ends up before us. And it's, yeah, our guidelines that we're asked to follow are what they are, and the way it's phrased in terms of replacement in kind, that is definitely an option for you that I would encourage you to consider if speed is of the essence.
Can I ask you what has changed from from the time that we first approached 1995 with the Historical Commission, considering 2024, is the rules have changed, or what has changed? I don't understand.
In 1995 or whenever, were you proposing replacements of things with AZEC?
Well, my best, I mean, it's been a while, it's been 30
Yeah,
years
no.
now.
Yeah,
So
I think
when we,
not.
huh?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. I'm exhausted. If my architect Doug White has comments, I mean, I would love them to speak at this time. My brain is shutting down right now.
It is the hour for that.
Doug?
Yeah, so I've been listening to all this. I haven't heard from the other members of the commission. Are they not involved in this discussion, or they have no comments about?
They're
What you're
staff. They're
seeing-
not, yeah, you're
they're
just seeing
staff.
staff. They're not on the commission. They're
Okay,
just-
okay.
They're just.
All right, I just see the
support
names
staff.
and I'm just curious. I was just curious.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that even in wood, you're going to be able to match the profiles economically. I mean, I tried doing that on my own house in Medford several years ago on some of the interior trim, and it was because you have to have blades made for these. They have to run them through they have to mill them. It takes probably takes months to get that kind of material. And I mean, I've been at this. I've been in business for 30 years, and when AZEC came along, it was like the magic material to replace the wood. And I don't believe that anyone is going to notice that there's AZEC down on the first level. I understand the coins, that's an issue. I'm not sure how that could be made in AZEC. Maybe we can have pieces that are made of a material that's going to, because I tell you, you make it out of mahogany, well, mahogany is an endangered species, so it's much more difficult to get today. But, so, I mean, if you make it out of pine or cedar, it's going to split in 5 years. That's the problem, and that's the problem with a lot of those coins that have fallen off, is they've split. So I'm looking for ways to make it look exactly the same as it is. Maybe not 100% exactly the trim pieces, but if you're as close as you can with an off-the-shelf product that closely matches it, because you're not going to match it. There's probably not a single company that makes a profile especially the rope molding on the corner boards. That is a very wide rope molding, and I've never seen that. Trust me, I've looked into it. I've never seen it. I appreciate the desire, but I think economically, you know, to me, the elephant is in the room is how is this homeowner going to afford replicating every single thing on a house that has so many details on it, and do it in wood why would we, you know, I would say if you were my client, I would say, why do you want to put on a product that's not going to last for a long time and you're going to have to paint it regularly, versus a product that will last a much longer time, will not warp, will not rot. I mean, I've been hearing this, and I appreciate that, you know, as an architect, I wish if there was an unlimited budget here, which I don't believe there is, then all of the things that the committee's been saying, I say, yeah, that's great. I would totally do that. But I think the realistic elephant in the room is can Baj and his family, or whoever's financing this project, is it a $250,000 job, or is it a $750,000 job to get everything that the commission is looking for? And if that's what they're only going to approve, how's he going to be able to do anything? So, you know, I hear Baj's frustration, but at the same time, I can appreciate the spirit and the intent of trying to make it look as close as possible as it was. And I think 99.9% of the people that walk by that house will think that it's original. And if we nitpick every single little tiny detail on the facade, we're going to be here for months trying to figure out what, oh, this has to be wood, this has to have a thing, this has to be that. I think that we can match it fairly closely, and where we can't, we'll use wood. I just don't recommend it as a product to be used on the exterior of a house anymore. I mean, I've just seen too many people that have called me in after 10 years, and now they're replacing their wood siding because either it wasn't back primed or it was poorly milled, and they're replacing with hardy board. I mean, is hardy board my favorite? Do I love cedar? I love cedar, but some people just don't want to spend the money for it. So that's just my take on this whole process. And I think there's in your maintenance ordinance, there's some information about what you can and can't accept, I guess, under the minimum maintenance standards ordinance, which to me, this is a maintenance job. He's maintaining and repairing the existing house. And it says, I highlighted it, and it says, nothing in this ordinance shall be construed to prohibit a property owner from installing replacement siding. Nothing in this ordinance shall be construed to require property owner to be property to be renovated or restored to original conditions. And how does that apply in this case?
Mr. Chairman, through you, if I may, it does. So the design guidelines are very specific. And so when you are changing out a material type, then it's going to come before the commission, right? And so the minimum maintenance ordinance, I mean, you could argue with the state of the building that it's in that they haven't engaged in minimum maintenance. I mean, I'm not going to make that argument, but somebody could through that minimum maintenance argument in and of itself. So, I mean, I think that I would caution with the minimum maintenance ordinance. And when you're talking about like restoring a building does not mean replacing materials that were originally used with synthetic materials. That is when the commission needs to weigh in on it and then make a decision. I mean, we're at the point here where I'm not sure. I mean, I know that the commission has said this a few times, so it's like, I think, Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're at the point where we've got to make a decision, because I think that the commission at least would like to see more information, right? They want to see more detail, and that's what they're asking of you. And I think all the insistence in the world, I'm not sure that they're at a point where they're going to say, yes, just go ahead and do it tonight. But I also understand that you're not at a point where you're going to say like, oh, okay, I'm just going to submit an application to staff and just say everything's going to be all wood and it'll be fine. So we're kind of like, we've got like 3 different things going on here. And so I think that the commission is giving you a path forward to at least how to move it forward. And it's not to say that they'll say absolutely no to everything. Like they've already said that they could, kind of see where AZEC up at the really high portions of the building, where you really can't see them that much, might be okay. And, once they feel that they have more information, then they can make a more informed decision. And I just think that I'm not sure how many more ways that they can say at this point that they really do want to have some more detail provided to them. And then in the meantime, you need to do some sort of, temporary stay of, whatever the issue is on the roof or what have you. Because I know we've been like going over this since like July. So a lot of time has passed since too, right? When, some things, we could have been done with this. So I think that right now what they want to do is they'd like you to get moving you forward in some fashion, but they need the information to do it.
Sarah, wasn't the building permit was approved?
No.
I'm really surprised because I had spoken to I was told that the building was building department approved a permit on this thing.
No, nope, there's no approved building permit.
There was no communication from the chief of staff, from the mayor's office to your office?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I have documents stating otherwise.
I don't have anything, no.
You don't have anything from the chief of staff?
Nope,
Nothing at all?
no.
To receive a building permit, you would require our approval, I mean, sign off from this commission, from that staff.
Well, I mean, Chair Parks, when I approached the building department about emergency repairs, this was supposed to be on emergency repairs. That's where it was.
I don't, no, I don't, there's no approved building permit in here. You've got a balance due on one building permit for residential repair. But must have been some issue with it. I just, no.
So, I mean, this is kind of stalling out. I would suggest if you really want to get going with something, you apply for repair and replace in kind, go through staff. And then we work on these other issues of exactly, you fine tune what you would propose in synthetics. And maybe you do this before you actually start the work, but that way you can kind of get things ramped up and we could approve those, give us a nice photo and circle exactly what you want to do. That's the spots, and then give us a samples. You know, this is the existing molding. If you magically find an AZEK product and that's almost a dead-on match with an 1/8 of an inch or something, then maybe we'd look at it. And that's, to me, the most direct path forward if you really, really want to start with something before that.
Okay.
And to talk to a mill worker and say, like, here are these coins. What can you do for us to make it mahogany? I think I'm sensing a little bit of hyperbole when you're giving it a $500,000 budget range based on whether you custom make coins or not. So I think a little more information on that side might also help you guys out.
And Mr. Chairman, through you, did you also want to see how it would look if it were made in AZEK?
Sure.
I want to know, I want to know for, the material that gets sent in for the next time around. So if the coins can be cut to the profile in AZEK, that might give you more information.
I'm not opposed to synthetics. It's just how they finish out. So if someone could give me an example of saying, look, here's the coin, and it's exactly has all the, we can actually mill it like you would and paint it, and it looks like just new wood. I'm not opposed to that in theory.
Can I ask you a question? Since since you're city employees, is there a government grant through the city to restore this house at all?
So we have the Community Preservation Act in Somerville, and I thought I'd mentioned this a while back when you asked about grants. So the Community Preservation Act is a grant program that some cities have adopted, including Somerville. And grant money can be applied for, including by private homeowners, although that gets a little bit sticky. By private homeowners for open space and recreation, affordable housing, or historic preservation. And there is a regular cycle of applications that the CPA takes. I am not the CPA manager, so I don't know what that cycle is. Although Chair Parks, you serve as the HPC representative. Are you already in meetings for this year's round of funding? I think you are.
Yeah, so this year's stuff is already, the cycle is complete. If you were to apply for a grant, it wouldn't get reviewed until next like October, November. So you'd be looking into another year until that went out, because it's a yearly process. There's basically a grant round, and then we deliberate them and decide how much money is available and how much we can spend and all that. And right now we're finishing up that process with the previous year's stuff.
Although if I could, Mr. Chairman, there is you can always apply for emergency funding. There is that ability, but you would need to talk to the CPA manager about that, and her name is Roberta Cameron. But we've had very few private property owners apply. They can. somebody applied for $495,000 worth of work on a house they just bought about 10 years ago. And they said, oh, we just bought this and we have to do all these things. And we thought, you know, they thought at the time they didn't even hear. It's like, no, you have to take some responsibility yourself. So, so
How
there
much
is
was, how much was approved?
none.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of nonprofits in municipal buildings and things like that, but a lot of nonprofits that are also like a lot of social service organizations that happen to own historic buildings. So they tend to get funding first. However, you can apply. I would reach out to Roberta Cameron and talk to her about what the process is. And you know, she can explain it to you and also probably guide you that like the whole shebang of what you're looking to do is probably not the way to go.
There's
Sarah,
been a few cases where, yeah.
Sarah, tomorrow I'm having a coffee with Governor Healy in Arlington. I'm gonna bring this my frustration with her, and no disrespect. I'm just a little frustrated with this process, and we're trying to do the right thing. And I'm just, I don't know what else. I mean, I don't know what else I can tell you. I mean, I'm frustrated. We need to restore this house. And
Chair Parks, do you think that we could do a resolution? We're just talking in circles here a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we just need to, I would suggest that we can, if you're agreeable to it, we continue your case. Or the thing is, if we vote it down, I mean, there's not, I can tell you, I don't think there's support to vote it forward. If we vote it down, then that's that. So if I were in your shoes, I would continue it and give us the information on the roof and then talk to.
I agree. We should, if you guys would continue it, then we can regroup and decide what direction we're going.
And it does need to be continued to a specific date in the future. It can't just be an open continuance. So you'll have to choose something that's far enough in the future where you think that you can get the information that we need, and you'll communicate with your case planner, who is Andrew Graminsky, through the message function in CitizenServe. So if the other Doug hasn't given you access to CitizenServe, please get it through him. And look for the messages, and you can communicate by sending a message. But you should continue it to a date far enough in the future where we won't need to try to get in touch with you again to say, okay, we need to continue it to a later date. So obviously not too far and not too short. So just right.
Can I make a suggestion? Next meeting, we should do it at a restaurant, because if we're gonna be on Zoom call for 2 hours, there's no dinner served.
There isn't for staff either. And we just got home from work.
I know. I was going to make a suggestion. As a commission, we should meet at a restaurant, local restaurant. And I'm happy to pick up the tab. So.
Oh, no, against ethics. Totally against ethics.
I don't think that's going to work.
No.
I think
That aside,
schedule it.
I will say, at least for myself, I have no objection if you're eating during the Zoom call.
Yeah, no, you can go right ahead. We don't care.
I had my mug of tea.
It has to be vegetarian because I'm a vegetarian.
All right. So yeah, we could have it continued, and you pick a date, and we'll.
Well, we meet twice a month, and I would just work backwards from how much time do you think you need to take a more detailed look at this and exactly fine tune what you would. I don't want to rehash what we've already been talking about. To come back so that we're not looking at this for 2 hours next time, but we're reviewing a very concise plan of action, and we can move forward with it. So if it's an extra 2 weeks past, just to get that to that level of certainty, then let's do it.
Well, 2 weeks won't be enough time for staff. So
I mean, 2 weeks past what you were. So the earliest you said would be the second meeting of March, or what did you say, sir?
Let's see, if it were the second meeting in March, and actually, Andrew, can you please unmute yourself and let us know like when you would need materials by? Like the second meeting in March is the 18th, and I don't know if that's feasible
St. Patrick's Day
for you.
This is Andrew speaking. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, through you, Chair Parks. So the next meeting is Tuesday, well, sorry, the second meeting in March is Tuesday, March 18th. Staff ideally would probably need, we would need new updated documents, ideally a week before that so we can respond. We need to get all documents to the commission the Thursday before the meeting, which would be the 13th. So ideally staff would have those documents earlier than that. So I would say the end of the first week of March.
Yep,
So
the 7th.
the 7th.
Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, the 7th.
March 7th.
And Doug, you would just upload those through Citizen Serve too, and you would indicate that they are the updated documents
Correct.
in the file names.
When when I did, I think some of you may have been looking at an older version of the submission based on the page numbers because they've all been updated. But anyhow,
Okay.
I notified Andrew via email that they had been updated. I don't access the Citizen Serve every day, and I do it through Doug White's account, and I think it's weird that when there's a inner office or internal message, that once you read it, it disappears. Does that sound right? Isn't there like a log of all the messages?
Yeah,
I
can.
think what
I have
Baj is, go ahead.
I could actually look. I could actually look to see what messages we have sent you, and I can still see them in your portal view. Unfortunately, and this is one of the things, and it's been a long time, but that I mentioned like back when we met months ago, is that when an applicant sends a message, we get it, but there's no like sort of send out box for an applicant. So the applicants, and this doesn't matter if it's building permit or historic permit or whatever, applicants have to keep note of when they sent a message and, you know, generally what that message was about. It stinks, but it's Citizen Serve and there's literally nothing we can do to change it because I asked them a year and a half ago, unfortunately.
That's what I figured. That's what I figured. Yeah.
But it would behoove you to log in every day just to double check because Citizen Serve, when we send a message, does send a no reply email to the person who has the email of record.
Right.
So if that's Doug, the other Doug, he needs to tell you he got that. And it's like no reply at citizenserve.com. It's not from the city of Somerville and not from historic. So that's what you have to look for. But it really would behoove you to check, like say once a day. Because otherwise, if you miss something and you think, oh, I didn't check the other day, and then it's like, oh crap, it's been a week and a half. Instead, we're waiting to hear back from you. So the longer we wait, you know, the more we can keep that constant communication flowing, then, you know, really the better it is for everybody.
Yeah. No, I that's fine. I know Doug White probably is not checking his email as often as most people do. So and he knows that. So yeah, I'm not saying anything he doesn't already. I've already busted his, you know, about, but he can't change the email address because I have my own account on Citizen Serve for Somerville for projects that I've done in the past.
Right. So you would have to check in.
Yeah, so he gave me his login credentials so I could at least check. So I did a screen capture because the last time I sent Andrew something, it disappeared. So that way I could CC Josh and Doug White on that. So it's a little weird, but you know.
I know.
Okay.
1990. Oh, well, it's not believe me, we criticize it all the time. So yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you on that.
Okay. And I think what Josh was referring to earlier about a permit, there was a permit that was posted under this project when I got involved last fall. And it was a building permit from the building department. And that's since disappeared. That's since been removed.
There is one there from like May of last year, but that's the only one I see.
Oh, it's not visible on our side. So
I can see it on Doug's side. Because I can actually see his portal view and I can see it.
Okay.
Sarah, would you be able to send me email of that building permit, which was approved in May?
It wasn't approved.
Oh, it was not approved?
It's in the system. It's still waiting to be approved because they told you guys to come to historic, and now we've been
Okay,
waiting.
Right.
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yep.
All right, we don't need to keep dragging this out. So
Okay.
you guys do your thing and we'll look at that March 7th deadline and do our thing.
Okay, so we would need, do we need a motion to vote on
Yes.
this, or is this just administrative?
Yes.
So, as requested by the applicant to continue case, this case until the March 18th meeting of our commission. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do a roll call, Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you and have a good night.
See you in a bit.
You all.
Good luck with the planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Get
Thank
right
you
on it.
again for working to restore the house. And we really are all on the same page that we want to see that happen, and it's just in the details, I think.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Good night.
Good night. Okay, then, that was that, and we now have other business, minutes of 12/17.
Yes. Did I attach the minutes correctly?
I was gonna say, I didn't
Because
recall seeing the minutes.
yeah,
I didn't see them either.
I feel like I just realized today that I might have forgotten to attach them correctly. So my bad. I will send them next time.
No
And
problem.
do we have a CPC update?
Yeah, that's me. We are in the process of finishing up there were a couple of straggling projects that we're looking for more information on to decide about some of the details around funding. The park on Quincy Street and Mr. Coughlin's building there. And I'm not sure what the status of that was. I think we went forward with those. There might have been some other information requests. I'd have to check with Rebecca about that, but we are starting the process now of, we do this every year, reconfiguring how the best way to reach prospective new people applying for grants. We're hatching out details around, and this is one of the things that came up with the project there on Bow Street. When you're giving money to private people, to homeowners or condo owners in that case, is the process different than for other commercial things? I think the general concern is, what do you do if you gave, for example, a bunch of money to a project like this that we just discussed, and they turn around and sell it the next day, and it's like, well, they made a bunch of money on it. So previous times when we've approved money for private projects, there's been some sort of clawbacks that if they sell it, they give back some of the money, or what's the duration of that? The little details like that. And that's about it. So we're entering a slow period for the CPC stuff. I think thanks to our recent vote, the funding will be doubled. I think it's going to take effect for this next year's funding, which will be helpful because we've been getting more requests for money than we have available for preservation and for open space the last couple of years.
So if that's the case, but you still find a need to try to reach out to more people?
Well, yeah, I think
if
we need to
you're
reach
getting
out.
more requests than you have money, then
Yeah, no, it's a good point, Dan. I think there's a concern about whether we're reaching everybody. It's more about an equity thing, about making sure everybody's aware of it.
yeah, it does feel like that the applicants are the same applicants each year. So.
Yeah, we have a couple of repeats that have gone a lot. There's a Peabody House and the church, the building down on Cross Street, and those are good people, so it's good to be funding that. But I think there's an awareness that there might be other people out there that could be benefiting from this. We just want to make sure the word is getting out. It's one thing when you give out flyers at the the winter farmers market, for example, but is it really reaching people who might live down on Lower Broadway or spots like that? So I think that's sort of like what we discussed. Yeah, have you heard anything, Dan, about your building from Roberta, the status of that? Because I don't remember exactly how we left it the last meeting.
Yeah, I have. We're still in discussion. We're still talking about it. The concern that I heard, we don't have to get into this. We can, people don't want to listen to it, but the concern is that what happens if one day in the future, the LHD, because the LHD is just an ordinance, what if that is one day revoked by the city? As unlikely as that may be, their concern is that the concern that Roberta was telling me is that if that is revoked, then there is no protection on the building. And then the project will have been, the building will have been improved, but then the city has no kind of access to it. So the idea would be what they're considering asking for is a permanent restriction on the deed. And I'm just not sure. Yeah, I'm still getting all the details from Roberta, and then I'm going to bring it to our board and go from there. But not sure that a permanent restriction makes sense on our end. I don't know. We'll have
Yeah, I
to
remember
see.
that. Now you draw some memory. That was a little complicated that way because there's an awareness that with condominiums, it's kind of hard to get that sort of.
Well, that's the other thing. Roberta then made it pretty clear that she didn't think that we would get a permanent restriction because the banks, everybody who's the mortgage holders, would say no to that because they don't want a permanent deed restriction on the building on each of the 14 different mortgages. So they're kind of asking us to do something that they're then telling us probably wouldn't be accepted by the banks anyway. So it feels like kind of a funny ask. Apparently a shorter term one, like a 30 or a 40-year restriction would be allowed, and you wouldn't need approval from the banks. You would just need approval from I think the homeowners, I guess. So yeah, I'm still working out the details with Roberta, and then I'm going to bring it to our building.
Normally with homeowners, when it's given money out, they sign a preservation easement, which even for non-historic properties requires some protection for the building.
Right, but because we're in a local historic district, that protection already exists.
I remember that discussion. That's like the hypothetical is like theoretically, if someone decides they want to put a 25-story building there in 20 years, all that would have to happen would be that the city council would have to just vote against it and evaporate it.
And then the question is in 25 years, is the grant that we've accepted, have we gotten the value out of that? Has the city gotten the value out of that? Or does the city want, we're not asking for $10 million.
Yeah, exactly.
We're asking for kind of a small amount of money when you compare it to drinking fountains and other things that were asked for. So, yeah.
And it's a beautiful building and it's a prominent role. So there's.
Yeah, and we're doing the rest, and we are, like you were talking about, or like Sarah White was talking about, with that building that asked for like the whole thing. We already did one side, and we have, we would finish out the project. So we would do 3/4 of the project.
Yeah.
So that's our point of view anyway.
That's the synopsis. And
sorry to take up more time. I know this was a long meeting.
No, it's good. I mean, it's good that we all understand the process for that stuff because it's before I actually join this committee, somebody at some point will join that in my place because I'll get term limited out.
Right.
So you know what that is. Oh, speaking of term limits, what happened with the city? Weren't they going to send somebody to talk to us about the new rules?
So I emailed the department that's in charge of that and asked if I could get someone to come to an HBC meeting to do like a Q&A session with you guys, and I was told that they would be having a session open to all board and commission members in late January that anyone could go to if they had questions, and then we could see if there were still questions after that. And then I guess that didn't happen. So I followed up. It asked if there was any updates on that, and they said, oh, it'll be sometime in early February. But now it's early February and I haven't heard anything
Okay.
since, so
Well, thanks. Just keep us posted, I guess.
I'll keep you guys updated.
Cool. Any other things to look at then? For this meeting? Otherwise, we could get a motion to adjourn.
That's everything on the agenda.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Yes, from who? Mr. Coughlin there.
Yep.
We'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Chagnon. All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Ms. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Chagnon?
Yes.
Mr. Coughlin?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. We are adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Eric.
everybody.
Take care, y'all.
So long, torturous, but yeah.
Bye-bye.
One second,
Thanks,
so,
Eric.
See you all.
Thanks for hanging in there.